All right, welcome back to the channel. So I get to talk about a fight in this video that I did not think was going to be able to be made, and that is Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fortuna for, I think, maybe the interim WBC or belt or whatever. However, really excited for this fight, but fans have been pressing me with the idea that this would make Ryan Garcia pass Devin Haney in accomplishments and in, I guess, his status as a WBC champion. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back. So, Ryan Garcia and Javier Fortuna are going to be having a fight. Honestly, this is a tough one to get my head around because Ryan Garcia is taking a chance in this fight that is, in my opinion, is very, very big. Because Javier Fortuna is one of the more awkward and dirty fighters that there is in the sport of boxing. He is a guy that if you look at his face, he's got kind of a baby face, right? Kind of, not the most cut body in the world. Doesn't have a particularly great body of work. But if you have watched him fight Robert Easter and watched him fight Adrian Granados, you will know that this guy is the phrase tough would apply to him. Extremely tricky, extremely awkward, and will do dang near anything to stay competitive in a fight and throw you off. He is the type of guy that I think that if you were trying to protect Ryan Garcia, you would not put him in with Javier Fortuna. Honestly, I would say the same thing for Devin Haney, that if Devin Haney was going to go into a fight, and honestly, dude, that's where these guys' argument, starts making a lot of sense, because Devin Haney is fighting Jorge Linares, right? Jorge Linares is a very good name, and he's a very good win and a step-up fight for sure. Do not get me wrong. I think both of these fights are excellent fights. And when I'm talking about which is better than the other, it's just a matter of degree, right? So, for example, if Terrence Crawford were to fight Sean Porter, that would be a very, very good fight, right? A high-level fight. Would love to see the fight. However, if he was to fight Errol Spence, I think that is a higher-level fight. Both fights are good, but one fight, the one with Errol Spence, just happens to be more competitive and a tougher matchup, in my opinion, than the Terrence Crawford Sean Porter fight. And you could take it to the extremes if you wanted and say Terrence Crawford, or switch it and say Yordenis Ugas for Spence is a good fight, but Spence versus Crawford is a better one. So before people get in a tizzy, right? Listen to what I'm saying with that thought in mind. Devin Haney fighting Jorge Linares is a good fight. Jorge Linares is an experienced fighter. He has a very solid name. He has fought Vasily Lomachenko. He has fought Luke Campbell. He has held belts. He was a belt holder at 135. I also believe he was a belt holder at 126 or 130 at a point in time. So clearly a very good fighter. Jorge Linares, however, has been knocked out at least 2 times in his last 4 fights. And before he came to 135, he got knocked out by a couple times at a lower weight class. He did put up a good fight against Vasily Lomachenko and was the first person since Gary Russell Jr., I believe, to knock down Vasily Lomachenko. And he definitely put up a good fight against Vasily Lomachenko. So I'm not saying he's not a solid fighter. However, he's not the same fighter he was when he was fighting Vasily Lomachenko, because Vasily Lomachenko knocked him out. And then after that, I think there was a fight, and then he had a fight against somebody, then maybe one fight after that, he was knocked out again. So this is a guy that right now people know if you step to him, you can get him out of there. That is a mystery. That is not a mystery with Jorge Linares. And the reason why I think that this fight for Devin Haney with Jorge Linares is such a good fight, for not only because Jorge Linares is a good fighter, but from a matchmaking point of view, it's a good fight for Devin Haney because Devin Haney right now doesn't have a reputation as a big puncher. So, and Jorge Linares definitely is not a big puncher and is naturally the smaller guy. So Devin Haney should be able to track down Jorge Linares and be able to bang with Jorge Linares and show his power, right? Or he's just going to beat Jorge Linares over 12 rounds, and then people will say, well, hey, the question of your power is still in, we still have the question about your power. If you can knock out Jorge Linares and Lomachenko can, why would I think that you're a bigger puncher as Lomachenko? And if you can't, you're not a bigger puncher than Lomachenko, then 140 and 147, how is that going to bode well for you, right? Because at 135, you're supposed to be knocking people out, right? When you move up to 140 and move up to 147. So that's the equation for Devin Haney, and he has an opportunity, a very solid opportunity of doing just that, knocking out a ex-champion who and showing his power, right? Which is not unreasonable for you to do with the developing fighter. The reason that I would say that this Ryan Garcia versus Jorge Linares is a tougher test for Ryan Garcia, because Jorge Linares also is a former champion. However, at 135, for sure, he has shown the ability to be an extremely tough fight, because he fought Adrian Granados at 140 and fought a competitive fight with him. Now, there is still a degree of that vulnerability in Javier Fortuna as well. Now, there's the matchmaking involved there as well, because Adrian Granados, pretty much had Javier Fortuna, Javier Fortuna was being dirty and doing what he usually does, but Adrian Granados was getting to him, right? And I don't think Adrian Granados is as big a puncher as Ryan Garcia. So they're probably hoping that while he's doing all that sloppiness, that he runs into something that he ain't gonna wake up from. Which with Ryan Garcia is very possible, because he knocked out Luke Campbell, and Luke Campbell is a tough fighter who fought Lomachenko and almost got stopped, but was never really in the type of trouble he was in when Ryan Garcia connected with him. Because when Ryan Garcia connected with him, it was like, dude, you're out, your lights out. When Lomachenko was getting him, it looked like he was stepping on the gas on him, and then Lomachenko didn't have the power to take him out with one shot, right? So I know that these fights, there's not good or bad. They're both very, very good fights. But when somebody presents to me the argument that, an argument I don't agree with, by the way, because here's the argument. Their argument is that means not what I said, but you get the gist of the argument, that what their argument would be if they made a solid one. You got to do them a favor and make a solid argument for them sometimes, just so you can have an interesting conversation. So anyway, you get my point on that. But the problem is this: that does not mean that Ryan Garcia is at the point where Devin Haney is, because Devin Haney is the legitimate WBC champion, and that's just the truth of the matter. He is. And who you fight, right? Just because Ryan Garcia in this particular fight might be taking a more awkward, more questionable fight than Devin Haney is, that doesn't mean that if you switch the same thing, that the performances wouldn't be the same. Because Devin Haney fighting Jorge Linares, fighting Javier Fortuna, I think will go the same way. Except for the only difference would be that maybe Devin may not have the power to just get him out of there with one punch. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's my take on the matter. I still think Devin Haney is the number 2 guy at lightweight, right behind Teofimo Lopez, but that I think he should be considered the WBC champion, and that this particular set of fights aren't going to change that for me, unless, of course, Devin Haney loses to Linares, or Ryan Garcia loses to Javier Fortuna, or gets a decision in some real, questionable fashion. Anyway, that's what I think. You let me know, and that is just what I think. Feel free to let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.